Hello, welcome to the Millionaire Woman Show, where we'll be discussing leadership, business, and human potential, inspiring you to live rich from the inside out. Unlock your creativity, stretch out of your comfort zone, break through your barriers, take inspired action, and achieve epic results. Now, here's your host, two-time best-selling author, speaker, and certified executive coach, Deborah Kosowski.
Hello, everyone. It's Deborah Kosowski with the Millionaire Woman Show. We are so excited to bring our special guest. Bob Burg is a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences, sharing the platform with everyone from today's business leaders and broadcast personalities to even former U.S. president. Bob is the author of a number of books on sales, marketing, and influence, with total book sales of well over 1 million copies. His book, Go Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, sold over 500,000 copies and is translated into 21 languages. And that's this book here. And it has been released in a new expanded edition with foreword by Huffington Post founder and publisher Arianna Huffington. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is also an unapologetic animal fanatic and serves on the board of trustees for Furry Friends Adoption and Clinic in his town of Jupiter, Florida. So I want to just touch on, I was introduced to the Go Giver and the Go Giver Sell More a few years ago, and I have just been inspired by you, Bob, and the Go Giver way ever since. And so I just want to tell people a little bit about the Go Giver way. It's about giving exceptional value and enjoying extraordinary results. It is generally agreed upon that entrepreneurship is the engine that drives an economy upwards and is primarily responsible for its growth. Entrepreneurs create jobs, bring better and more affordable products and services to the marketplace, resulting in greater societal health, overall wealth, and vastly improved standard of living. And while we treasure the entrepreneur, one needs not to start their own business in order to be one. One can be an entrepreneurial within a company setting, often called the intrapreneur, and can lead from anywhere they happen to be positioned. And I am so excited. And when we talk with Bob here, we're going to talk about why you don't need to be an entrepreneur to be entrepreneurial. The 5 laws that will bring both personal effectiveness and professional success, the difference between price and value, and why it's so vitally important to understand the difference, and one golden nugget of advice from a drive-by mentor that totally shifted Bob's perspective and played a big role in his success, and why asking if something will make money isn't a bad question. It's just a bad first question. And one thing to absolutely avoid doing when you're seeking out a mentor, and why being a go-giver is absolutely congruent with and even honors human nature. Thank you for joining us again, Bob, on our show here at the Millionaire Woman Show, where we talk about leadership, business, and human potential.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be with you.
So one of the first things I want to just ask you, can you just talk to us about the entrepreneurial spirit and about what those who aren't entrepreneurs, how does this message of the go-giver really apply to them?
Well, the basic premise of the Go-Giver, Deborah, is simply that shifting your focus, and this is really the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And in this context, when we say giving, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing value to others. And that doing so is not only a nice way to do business, it's the most financially profitable way to do business as well. And not for any way out there, la kind of reasons. No, nothing magical or mystical about it. It's just, the fact is people are going to be much more aligned with and want to be in relationship with someone who they know has their best interests at heart. So when you're focusing on another person in business, the chances are much greater that they are going to feel good about you. They're going to know you, like you, trust you, want to do business with you. Well, that's an entrepreneur, but even within a company, and when we think of an entrepreneur, it's someone who owns their own business, but even someone who works for someone else, what we would call an intrapreneur, right? If they're that person who still has the entrepreneurial spirit, meaning they understand that it's still their job to provide value to everyone whose lives they touch. Now, for an intrapreneur, someone who works within another person's company or organization, that their customer may be their coworker. It may be the person they have to provide information to or do something for. It may be the people on their team who they lead. It might be their supervisor. Obviously, it's their boss, the person who they're working for, or it might also be, I should say, and or the end user if they have something to do with that aspect as well. It simply means that wherever you are, you understand that your job is to provide value to others. That's really what it's all about. Remember that as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, and if you're an entrepreneur, you are a salesperson, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Mm-hmm. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. They're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person who believes in your product and you think they should have it. They're going to buy from you only because they believe they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. It's the same when you work for a company, okay? No one's going to hire you because you need a job. They're not going to hire you because you need the money or because you're a really nice person, okay? They're going to hire you because they believe it's in their best interest as a company owner or supervisor or what have you to do so. So they're going to base their hiring decision on whether they believe you are going to bring them more in value than what they are paying, right? Just like anyone who buys from you wants to know that they're receiving more in value than what they're paying for the product. This is basic economics. It's also basic human nature. So when we understand this, then we can take real joy in understanding that we are there to look for ways to create value for others, whether that's solving their problems or making life easier or doing this or doing that, whatever it is that we do.
So when you're making yourself basically indispensable by providing value, and especially for the person who's the entrepreneur, even though they're not, well, they are driving their own paycheck. Because how far they want to go in an organization, if they want to do a career route that way, right, how much value you give will determine what results you're going to get and where you're going to be heading to.
Exactly.
So what are some ways that people can demonstrate value?
Well, you know, there are probably hundreds, if not dozens, of ways to communicate value to the marketplace, whether that marketplace is the end user or where you work. But they tend to come down to 5 what we call elements of value. And they are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And to the degree that you can communicate any of these, and hopefully all 5 of these in every interaction with others, that's the degree that you provide so much value to any interaction, to any relationship, that again, as you said, and I love how you said it, that you make yourself indispensable.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the go-giver, the premise, so I know that there's a go-giver leader one as well.
Yeah.
So we have the go-giver sell more, and go-giver leader. What is the premise that is the golden thread throughout these books?
In a sense, it's being able to, as John David Mann, my awesome co-author, says, and as we like to put it, it's moving from an I focus or me focus to an other focus. Always looking for ways you can make that other person's life better, easier, more fulfilling, whatever it is that you do. You know, but I want to make sure I explain something and qualify something, because this can be very easy to misunderstand, if you will. And that is, and this, you know, has to do with law number 3, where we say your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. the great leaders, top influencers, and most successful salespeople, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. But it's important to understand that when we say place the other person's interests first or shift from focusing on yourself to focusing on others, that is in no way to be misconstrued as being a doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. That's absolutely not what we're saying. In the story, Joe, who was the main protege and got to speak to a bunch of the different entrepreneurs and mentors, one of the messages he continued to hear from them was that the golden rule of business is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to, and we would say allow themselves to be led by those people they know, like, and trust. Well, there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by taking your eyes off of yourself and looking at how you can benefit others. So again, this is very practical. In the marketplace of ideas, and the marketplace of business, and the marketplace of family and friendships and what have you, let's face it, we appreciate when we know that someone has our best interests at heart.
So what would you suggest, because sometimes I see that as a failing of someone who is a brand new entrepreneur or a brand new leader, that, you know, they come into this new position and they're like, I got this. It's all about me.
Right.
What would be maybe 2 or 3 nuggets of information, or from your experiences, what would you share with them shifting from the I to the we?
Well, first, you know, if they're coming into this new or what have you, or maybe this is what they've witnessed from people they know and admire, and they may not be ready to make a shift in this way until they come to a realization that doing it this way really doesn't work as effectively as they think it does, and that there are other reasons why that person who seems very egocentric or very self-centered and so forth, that they've succeeded despite that, not because of it, that they maybe had some other things, and even that, as a Marshall, what is Marshall's last name? You know, the great leadership,
Goldsmith.
Goldsmith,
Yeah.
as he says, what got you here won't get you there. That's a brilliant book, by the way, that he wrote. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people get to a certain point, they think that doing what they've done is, they think that is why they're successful, where to that level, where it might have been in spite of that, okay, and it's not going to get them. So this new person who comes in, until they understand that this is not the most effective way to work, they may not be ready to change. But let's say they are at that point. Yeah. Well, we know that's the first step, right? Understanding that, hey, you know, this isn't working for me quite as much as I thought it would. You know, there's got to be another way. And at that point, now they're ready to look at the people who have succeeded because of their focus on others. And they start to see that the great leaders, this is simply how they operate, okay? And so they begin studying those people. Now, they might read The Go-Giver, they might read The Go-Giver Leader, and that's fine, maybe give them some ideas. But I also want them to read a whole bunch of other books on leadership, because I want them to read Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. And the case studies he did with so many amazing companies led by such fantastic people, and that these leaders all had something in common, that they were focused on building their team. They were focused on their employees. They were focused on their customers. I want them to read Turn the Ship Around by Captain David Marquet, who learned a very important lesson when he was in the military, that top-down leadership can only get you to a certain level. It's only when you empower others to lead. I want them to read books by Dondi Scumaci, a great leadership hero and mentor of mine. She wrote a book, Career Moves, which is a fantastic book. And the books by people and leaders that show that what's real-world leadership is when you put your focus on those you lead and you make it about them, not about you.
What is the one book that has been a game changer for you in your business? Other than your own, of course.
No, it's not. Oh no, mine hasn't been a game changer for me. I don't learn anything from my books. I mean, so no, that's no, my books would certainly not count as that. I'll tell you a great book that I read about 8 or 9 years ago, because that's when it was published, and it was actually published posthumously. This person had died. He wrote it in the 60s, and I wish it came out then so I could have read it when I was just starting my career. It's a book by Harry Brown called The Secret of Selling Anything. I even have it right here that I could show up. The Secret The Secret of Selling Anything. And what's interesting about this is, while it certainly is a definitive guide for being a very successful salesperson, it's also something that everyone in leadership should lead, or anyone with a family, or anyone with friends, or anyone who'd like to be more successful. Because what he does, and again, this is taken from 2 manuscripts he wrote in the 60s that were never published. It really discusses human nature. And he provides such a brilliant understanding of human nature, why people do what they do, what ultimately motivates people, and how we can not try and change human nature, but respect and honor and work within human nature in order to bring about a win for everyone involved. And then in the second part of the book, based on that second manuscript, he ties that into sales. But it could just as well be tied into leadership as well.
Sounds like a lesson in acceptance as well, with it.
Sure.
Accepting the environment that you're in and being able to plant the seeds.
Oh, very well said. Absolutely.
So can you give us a quick review of the 5 laws that you and John share in the book, The Go-Giver?
Sure. Well, the laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The first one, the law of value, which says that in the business sense, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. This can sound a little counterintuitive, because it sounds like you're not being profitable. Give more in value than you take in payment. Sounds nicey nice, but not really real world. But that's actually not what it means. We need to understand the difference between price and value, okay? So where price is a dollar figure, it's a dollar amount, value is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, that brings so much worth to someone, so much value, that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. Quick example, you hire an accountant to do your taxes. She charges you $1,000. That's her fee, literally her price, $1,000. But what value does she give you that makes it so worthwhile to you? Well, through her years of study and learning her business and practice, through her taking time to get to know you and understand your business and what you're looking to accomplish, she is able to save you $5,000 in taxes. She also saves you countless hours of time. She also provides you with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So we see right here that, again, while price is finite, value can be both concrete in terms of that $5,000 savings, but it can also be conceptual in terms of that peace of mind. And how do you even put a price tag on it? Of mine, right? So what she did is she gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 price. So you feel great about it, and she made a very healthy profit, because to her, charging $1,000 for her time, and that's well worth it to her. Otherwise, she wouldn't do it. So, and Harry Brown used to say that in any free market-based exchange, and when we say free market, we simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. They do it on their own volition. In any true free market-based transaction, there are always 2 profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each one comes away from the transaction better off than they were before the transaction. And that's what the law of value is all about. Okay. But, you know, the focus needs to be not on the money. It needs to be on the value that you're providing. This is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which means the value comes first, and the money that you receive is simply a very natural and direct result of the value you've provided. Now, law number 2 is the law of compensation. This one says that your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us that the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. Your accountant in the first example did a wonderful job of providing more in value than what she took in payment, so the chances are you're very happy with her. You would do business with her again, and you'd probably refer her to others. Well, her other clients feel the same way. And so our accountant is very quickly amassing what we call an army of personal walking ambassadors. And as she continues to add that kind of exceptional value to the lives of more and more people, her income will continue to grow and grow. Now, law number 3, the law of influence, we touched on that slightly earlier. That simply says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, not self-sacrificially, but in a way that they know that you care about bringing value to them. And of course, you need to do that genuinely and authentically, which is law number 4, the law of authenticity, which says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. One of the mentors in the story, Deborah Davenport, shared with her audience, because in that chapter it was her giving a speech. She shared a lesson she learned very early in her selling career, and that was that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, even people skills, as important as they are, and they are indeed all very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you, as we like to say, show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. People begin to know you. They like you. They trust you. They feel very secure with you. And they're much more likely to want to be in relationship with you. The question would be, well, so why don't more people show up authentically? Why are there people who show up instead of authentically, they show up as a, I guess the correct Latin term would be phonus balonus, right? Sometimes they just don't seem to be themselves. And we might think, well, maybe they're trying to cheat, or maybe they're just not honest. Well, it's a big world. There's plenty of people out there. We need to be aware of that possibility, but I don't think that's usually the case. Typically, when someone does not really show up authentically, it's more than likely that they don't have the self-confidence to do so. They don't truly have that understanding of the value they bring to the table. And I think that and let's face it, it's difficult to be authentic when you don't feel you have anything authentically to communicate. So, in a sense, really, and this is why people like yourself who are coaches and mentors are so important, because sometimes, as human beings, we're so emotionally close to ourselves. It's difficult for us to kind of see that true value that we bring to the table. What I call market value. And market value is I define market value as that combination of strengths, traits, talents, and characteristics that allow you to bring value to the marketplace in such a way that you'll be financially and otherwise rewarded for it. But, because we're human, because we're emotional, because we don't always see things logically, we kind of see ourselves doing certain things and we think, everybody does that. I can't tell you how often I've been speaking with someone who told me what they were doing, and I said, wow, that's amazing, that's fantastic. And their response, oh, no, everyone can do that, or everyone does that. And they weren't being falsely modest or anything. They just didn't see it. To them, that's their world they live in. So to them, everyone can do that. And that's not often the case. So sometimes it's important to have a coach like yourself. It's important to have someone who cares and yet is dispassionate enough, because they're removed far enough away. They're not emotionally involved, and they can help us to see, okay, what are those strengths? So we need to know our strengths. Now, we need to know our weaknesses as well. Don't get me wrong. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. Some weaknesses we can sort of ignore because they're really not that big a deal. I don't run long distances well, okay? That's a weakness of mine. But at 58 years old and not looking to run a marathon, I don't care. I'm not going to do anything about that one. Other weaknesses we need to sort of mitigate, and others we need to actually work on and turn into strengths. Absolutely. but it's very important to really be fully aware of our strengths and what separates us and makes us unique. What makes us, as my friend Scott McCain would say in his book, Create Distinction, what really makes us distinct in the marketplace. Because when we know that and we honor that, that's when we can lead with that, and we can lead through our highest authentic self.
So you've drawn me way back to the beginning of the laws. And one of the things that comes to mind when we're demonstrating value is, and this is what I come across in some of the clients that I work with, is struggling to be able to charge for their intangible service, right? Because if you're a speaker, you're an author, you're a coach, often it's not seen as tangible, and trying to demonstrate that value, but also making sure that you also know your worth at the same time. Do the 5 laws just apply that way, or what would you suggest?
Well, this is exactly where law number 5 comes into play, the law of receptivity. And this says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Because if we diminish our value, we're not going to charge what we should charge. We're going to let people get us to lower our prices, and we're going to try to compete on price. And let's face it, unless your last name is Walmart, okay, trying to make low price your unique selling proposition is not a productive way to do business. We know that when you sell on price, you are a commodity. When you sell on value, you're a resource. I want people selling on high value, not low price. Then you're going to attract the type of customers you want to work with. You're going to have a lot more fun in your business. You're going to have a lot less stress, and you're going to find yourself a lot more profitable. So it's very important to allow ourselves to receive. This can be a big hang up with people, because let's face it, the universe gives us not mixed messages about money and abundance. It gives us negative messages about money and abundance. If you listen to most of the media, you think that people who are wealthy did something wrong to get there. That's absolutely, now there are all sorts of people, of course. So again, it goes back to, you can't say every, but especially the more free market an economy is, because remember, in a free market economy, no one is forced to buy from you. So the only way people are going to buy from you is when they feel as though they're going to receive fantastic value from you, when you have communicated great value to others. And when you do that, you have now earned and you've of course provided that great value. You've earned the right, you've earned the right to receive, but you've got to be able to do it. It's understanding that it's not just a matter, life is not just breathing out, it's also breathing in. We breathe out and we breathe in. We give and receive. It's not an either or. Giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin. They work best in tandem. Trying to give and give all the value in the world, that's fantastic, but it's all for naught if you're not willing to allow yourself to receive in like measure.
Well, that makes a lot more sense, because I see people struggling with that often, not thinking that they need to discount their services in order for people to pay attention and see that they exist or that they're worthy.
Right, just the opposite.
So let's go back to value, though. How does a person add value to others without costing too much money, especially when it comes to this competitive economic development?
Sure. Well, and let's face it, we are now in a world in which the playing field has been leveled. Technology is such that most products and services work, right? Again, I mentioned I'm 58. When I was a kid, and I remember, one of our first TVs, there were 3 stations. This is in the States. There were 3 stations. There were a couple of UHF stations eventually that came in, and there were these things called rabbit ears, which were antenna that sometimes had to be held in a certain way for the picture to come in.
I remember those.
Right. And often I was the family antenna, so I'd have to stand here like this and trying to, and TVs were expensive, right? And they, well, nowadays, you can get a great TV for a fairly inexpensive price. Products and services now work. by and large. So the world has become commoditized. And if you sell a product and even a service, the chances are you've got competitors that are selling the same basic thing. And there's no significant difference in the product or service itself. And when a potential buyer sees no significant difference in a product or service, it always then naturally comes down to who has the lowest price. Because of that, the only way we can separate ourselves in the marketplace is to communicate additional value. And to do that, we've got to be that additional value. I mentioned earlier about excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation as just being sort of the all-in-all elements of value. Well, excellence is first a matter of, obviously knowing what it is you do, your core competency. In his book, Become the Best of What Matters Most, my friend Joe Calloway says that, he said, I don't care about wow experiences, the extra special experiences. I just want them to do well what they're supposed to do. He said that in itself is a wow experience. Okay? That's excellence. But excellence is also the way you make people feel about themselves, about the company, and about you. It means that the person answering the phone does so in a way that makes people feel welcome. It means the phone's answered within 3 rings, so people don't find, it means that when you have to put someone on hold, you don't just say, hold on, click, but instead you ask their permission to put them on hold. After 20 seconds, you make sure you pick it up and let them know you're still searching, or you're still looking, or so will be with you soon. Would you like to remain on hold? It means when people say thank you, you don't say no problem. You don't even say you're welcome. You say my pleasure. It means you return your emails and your phone calls, and it doesn't mean you jump through hoops, but you do so in a reasonable period of time. You do things so that people know. I love what my friend Mike Mayer says. He wrote a great book that I'm just not thinking the name of it. I'm so mad at myself. I've forgotten a couple of, one name I forgot, and now a book I'm forgetting. But Michael Mayer is the author, and in this book, he was I think the second or the first top referral gatherer of all realtors in North America one year. And what his favorite saying is we're not number one, you are. And I think that when we make people understand that they are number one, again, it's that moving of focus from us to them. Yeah. That's excellence. That's excellence. Now, the next part is consistency, though. It's not a matter of doing it sometimes. Yeah. It's a matter of doing that day after day, week after week, month after month. So, we've all dealt with people who are one way one day and totally different the next day. Or we've eaten at that restaurant where the food and service was pretty good sometimes. Other times, not so much, right? But so consistency is so key. So it's not a matter of just excellence, but combining excellence with consistency. There's attention to detail, attention to that person as a human being, not just as a prospect. It's learning everything we can about that person. It's asking questions as opposed to just giving our presentation. In fact, our presentation should be questions as opposed to talking. It's an understanding that selling is not about trying to convince someone to buy something that they don't want or need. Selling is discovering what the other person does want, need, desire, and helping them get that. And we do that only through paying attention to details. There was an old series of books called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Dr. Richard Carlson. Great series of books. But I also love what Harvey Mackay, author of Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive and 5 other New York Times bestsellers, what Harvey says. He says in the business world, he says, sweat the small stuff, because when you sweat the small stuff, you're more likely to get the business. And then, there's empathy. It's that putting yourself in that other person's shoes, trying to understand how they feel, understanding that in business, you understand the process because you do it every day, but they don't necessarily. And they may have certain fears or concerns, and they're not sharing them with you because they feel like they're stupid or ignorant, they're embarrassed. And so we need to be able to lovingly empathize and ask them and have them share. And then there's appreciation, gratitude. It's feeling grateful, and it's having that, it sounds trite, but that attitude of gratitude, because that's so attractive to people. People want to be around people who feel good and who appreciate life and appreciate them. So when we do that, that is that additional value. And that's when we do this, then we take price, out of the equation when all other things are equal or close to being equal.
Well, one of the things when you talk about making that person feel like they're special, they're important, and the consistency piece, making sure that they feel number one. But it takes us back to when you talked about authenticity too, because people might think that, you're layering this beautiful jam on this, spreading on this jam to make them feel memorable. But if it comes from an authentic place and that you're grateful for that relationship and you pay attention to those details, I think the whole relationship shifts in another way from, the stereotypical salesperson that, car sales probably gets a bad rap for that. But that's the first thing I come to mind when I think of the inauthentic salesperson.
Right. And you're right. And yet the most successful car salespeople are the ones who do a great job of making people feel special, genuinely and authentically, and they love what they do and they care about. So, it always goes back to that. But car sales would be that, that you look at as that stereotypical, hey, fast walking, slick talking sales guy, right?
Yeah.
But those typically aren't the successful ones. Those people are working very, very, very hard and not necessarily doing so well. But the ones who really focus on providing exceptional value to their customers, they do great.
Yeah, it's a big difference. I've walked into, a number of car dealerships, and there's one that I have a relationship with that I do a lot of work with. And when I walk in there, I feel like family. I feel, they ask how I am. They ask who I am as a person versus, so are you buying something today? Or, what are you here for?
Right.
So it's really comes down to those relationships, and really, I love how you say it's getting to know what their want, their need is, but what it ultimately is that true need. What is it that they're really hoping to achieve by making that ask? Sometimes I don't think they even know until you ask those questions.
That's true. That's very true. What it comes down to is happiness. What it comes down to is everyone seeks happiness and will act in such a way that they believe will bring them closer to happiness through the decision they're about to make. Now, that will be based on how they understand happiness.
Yeah.
Because, and again, Harry, going back to Harry Brown, as he says, happiness is relative. What brings one person happiness will be absolutely meaningless to someone else, or might even cause them unhappiness. What happens is a lot of times a salesperson loves their product or service so much, which is a great thing, but they also are so in love with the benefits, but they're in love with the benefits from their own point of view. And what we need to understand is that value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what we feel is valuable about this product or service. It's what they do. So, so whether that person's a car salesperson, or whether that person's a financial advisor, or whether they're selling copying machines, or whether they're selling whatever it happens to be, they need to ask questions that before anything else, discover what that prospect values, what is most likely to bring them happiness based on how they value happiness and based on the choices that they have.
That is probably one of the most powerful nuggets I'm going to just tweet about on our interview, is that value comes from the eye of the beholder. And if you can tap into what that beholder is looking for with that empathy that you're coming from, and also really wanting to be there as the solution, I can see how, people aren't going to always look at the number on the paper. They're going to see that benefit and that value that you're offering them, that again, isn't a question, because they can see that that's going to be effective for them.
Right. Exactly.
Was there one piece of advice you received before you knew anything about being a go-giver entailed, and that it was a difference maker for you?
Well, On one hand, I was very, very lucky to be raised by a couple of parents who I would definitely describe as go-givers, even though that's not the term that, would have been used. But so they set a great example for me in that regard. I would say when I got into sales seriously and began to really study it and learn about it, I was given some advice by what we call a drive-by mentor, and one of my great mentors, Don DiScumaci, who I mentioned earlier, author of Career Moves. She and I talked about this, and we call it drive-by mentors. I think she coined the term. She's so brilliant. She has what I call Dondiisms, these wonderful nuggets of wisdom. But this person kind of took me aside one day because he saw that and he was not, by the way, in the sales. He was an older guy at the company. I think he was in the engineering department. I hardly knew him other than he seemed like a nice guy who I'd see in the hallways. But I think he saw something in me. I think he saw me as sort of like Joe in The Go-Giver, right? A person with potential, but not getting anywhere near that potential and holding himself back more than anything. And he said, do you mind if I give you some advice? I said, no, I'd love that. Thank you. And he said, Burg, he said, if you want to make a lot of money in business, actually he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he continued, you'll get a reward. That reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you want. But never forget, the money is only the reward for hitting the target. It's not the target itself. Mm-hmm. Your target is serving others. And that, to me, was a game changer. That made a huge difference to me. Because that said, okay, Burg, you need to take the focus off of this. The sale is not about the sale. The sale is not even about the product, and the sale is not about me. The sale is totally about that other person. And once I understood that, that was the game changer for me.
I think everybody needs to embrace the go-giver mentality and make sure that they're listening to the Go-Giver podcast, because that's how we infiltrate the messages. One line in the book that raised quite a few eyebrows, and it's where you and John wrote, does it make money? It's not a bad question. It's a great question. It's just a bad first question. And a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the startup phase, might disagree with you. And they even say that it's the only question when it comes to business. If we're not talking about money and making money, it just means that you're just so naive. So what do you two mean?
Sure. Well, again, let's go, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Let's go back to this. Remember, we didn't say that money is asking, will it make money, is a bad question. The mentor in the story said, it's a great question. It's a very important question, right? It's just a bad first question. So what is the best first question? And that is, will it serve? Okay, because if you go first with just asking if it will make money, that's about you. And this goes right back to no one's going to do business with you because you want to make money. Mm-hmm. They're only going to do business with you, thus give you money, because you've brought something to them that they feel serves them, that adds value to them. So having as your first question, will it make money, is like driving a car while looking in the rear view mirror. Okay, you're going in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. First, ask, will it serve? Is there a market for it? Will this bring value to people that people want? Then you can ask, okay, will it make money? Because sometimes it might be something that, would be wonderful. Everybody would love to have, but you can't possibly manufacture it or distribute it for a profit. Okay, well, then you also can't do it if that's, but asking first, will it serve? Only now can you, and once you know the answer to that is yes, only now can you legitimately say, okay, now will it make money?
So you make an interesting point, and it's also not about making the money, but really coming from a place of service. But I think we should spend more time on, you say in the Go-Giver philosophy, it's totally congruent with human nature, mm-hmm. and that could be overlooked in many ways, but not all of them positive. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, there's a few things here. One is we go back to human nature again, understanding that, and I remember that in his classic How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie wrote And this sentence, by the way, is what I believe is the underlying premise of Mr. Carnegie's book. He wrote, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. This is human nature, okay? Tie that in with what Harry said, the seeking of happiness, right? They're doing it for their reasons, not our reason. And their main reason, what it all comes down to, is they believe that doing so or not doing so will bring them closer to happiness than the other choice. Mm-hmm. So when we as entrepreneurs respectfully tie into that, it allows us to keep on focus, realizing that everything we do must be about the customer, must be about pleasing them. Harry Brown says, again, in a free market-based economy, profit is simply the reward for serving another human being. Okay, this is why I believe in free market capitalism so much, not cronyism, where big companies or special interest or so forth buy the influence of of government in order to have special rules and regulations. I'm not talking about that. That's not free market capitalism. Free market capitalism is where people are free to buy, sell, trade with who they want for the reasons they want. Okay, and when you allow people to do that, you'll have buyers who are looking to buy what they want of value, and sellers willing to receive for having provided that value. And what it does is it builds a bigger pie and a bigger economy for everyone. Mm-hmm. And everyone benefits. And it's really a magnificent thing. But again, that's human nature. And it's why when government tries to control who buys, sells, and things like that, it just doesn't work as well, because how does someone up in, with us it would be Washington, D.C., with you it would be Ottawa, how do they know what someone somewhere wants, what will make them happy? And so when you think of it, it really is, it kind of is a very natural thing, and it all does come down to, respecting human nature.
And one of the things that just caught my eye, I was looking down at your book, and I don't know if you have this, but when I look at this symbol, I think I need a pin like that to announce to the world that I'm a go-giver philosophy. And for people to have that on their lapel, to start the question of, what is this about? And to share your message of being a go-giver. I don't know if you have that, but it's my suggestion for the day.
Yeah. And there's an issue with that insignia, because the publisher bought the rights to use that for the book, but we can't actually use that for other products. So let's see, I'm looking, we have another, you can't really see this symbol, but we have another symbol now we use for the go-giver, which is sort of wings, and it's with the shape of the Canadian geese that fly in that alignment that allows all of them to take turns leading, and it benefits everyone. Okay. So we do have products coming out with that. Okay.
So because I think it starts the conversation. It opens the dialogue.
Yeah, I agree.
Having that philosophy, and we need to share that message with so many people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So a couple more questions for you. One of the principles in the book is about influence. How does a go-giver create influence both personally and in business? And how does it direct and relate to new business and even to leadership?
Well, when you think about influence and you define influence on a very, very basic level can be defined simply as the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. On a bit deeper level, we could say that influence is an unseen flow of power. And while both definitions work, I don't think either one really captures its essence. We believe that the essence of influence is pull as opposed to push. Ever notice you don't hear people saying, wow, that Dave or that Diane, she is just so influential. She has a lot of push with people. No, she has a lot of pull with people, because that's what it is. It's an attraction. Influence is pull. It's an attraction. Great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas. And they do that not through pushing their will on others, being push-y, right? Mm-hmm. But through its opposite, pull. And this pull we're talking about is really a very legitimate form of power. Power as opposed to force. Force, which is what? Compliance. It's intimidation. Yeah. It's manipulation, right? And we know that people who lead or try to influence people through manipulation or coercion or force, it only goes so far. It can go to a certain level, but very, just very limited. Mm-hmm. But when that influencer can pull people into their world, okay, now that's a whole different thing. Now they're able to elicit that commitment from others. Yeah. And there's a big difference. And again, one of my mentors, Dondi Scumaci, says when it comes to leadership, when it comes to influence, she says compliance will never take you where commitment can go. And I think that's so key.
That is very powerful in the fact that often when people see that influencer come, they'll be like, how did they just do that? I've been working on that subject matter for who knows long, and it takes this one person to come in and just ask a question or make a statement, and all of a sudden everybody follows along.
Right. And typically it's because this influencer has tapped into the needs, wants, desires, and values of those other people.
Mm-hmm. So are there misconceptions about what being a go-giver is? And I mean, the name itself almost implies that you're giving constantly. And can you be taken advantage of? For example, how does a go-giver tell people, no, I don't want to do that?
Okay, so let's look at that, because again, this is so very, very important. I think before people read the book and they see the title, The Go-Giver, yeah, it looks like you're giving yourself away, right? Or not making a profit, or you're just some selfless, again, doormatty type of person. Of course, that's exactly not what this is about. Being a go-giver simply means you understand the importance of placing your focus on bringing value to others. Go-givers tend to make a great profit because we're much more focused on the value we're providing as opposed to price. Okay. If someone is taken advantage of, it's not because they're a go-giver. It's because they're doing things in such a way that they allow themselves to be taken advantage of. Okay. So there is no congruency, if you will, between being a go-giver and being taken advantage of. Not at all. Now, as far as saying no, you do need to say no, because as a go-giver, you're going to be very, very successful, and you're going to have a lot of people that want your time and need your time. And the fact is, we only have so many hours in a day, and we need to be able to focus where we need to focus. So it's not a matter of not saying no and they, go-giver, you've got to be at everyone's beck and call and, sacrifice your, no, not at all. But a go-giver will say no in a way that is polite and respectful and communicates that they value this other human being, and that it's not something that's a personal affront, or that it's not something, but that it's, even the way we would say it. For example, I've seen people giving advice on how to say no. And one thing that's become very popular, almost politically correct, if you will, and I see this being told all the time, is the statement, no is a complete sentence. Just tell people no. And, I see this at seminars. I see this on TV, and people in the audience are looking all empowered. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And my question is, really? Is that how you're going to tell someone no? Someone asks you to do something that's not a bad request. It's just something you don't choose to do. Are you really just going to say no? Of course not, because it's not nice. It's you're probably turning this current ally into an enemy. The person's not going to ask you to do anything ever, and you may want to do certain things with them in the future. But mainly the reason you're not going to be rude like that is because it's incongruent with your value system of treating people with kindness and respect. So I don't think that's an effective way to say, a productive way to say no. Then there's people who will say, well, just kind of say to people, I'm too busy. So someone asks you to do something like serve on a committee, and you just do not want to do it for whatever reason it happens to be. And so, well, I would, but I don't have time. Well, the problem with that is, first, it's not, you're kind of fibbing to yourself. and to them, because it's not that you don't have time. You may feel you don't have time, but really you just don't have the desire to do so. You place more value on not doing so than on doing so.
Yeah.
In your search for happiness, you would rather not say, you'd rather not do so.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, not only do you feel kind of lousy about not being forthright, but this person probably is going to have a good answer and communicate persuasively why time is not an issue. And then you've either got to admit you are fibbing, right? Or you've got to now save face by taking the gig, which also you don't want to do. So I don't think that's very productive either. Instead, you can be honest, but very classy and very kind. You simply say, when the person asks you to do the thing, serve on the committee, what have you, you simply say, thank you so much for asking. While it's not something I'd like to do, please know how honored I am to be asked. And that's it. Okay. You've been kind. You let them know you were honored, so you honored them. You let them know it's not something you choose to do. You're saying no, but you're doing it in such a nice way that they can't possibly. And you're not giving them an excuse. You're not saying I don't have the time or don't have this, because that doesn't matter. That's not the issue. Now, if they try to kind of say, oh, but come on, oh, we really, again, you just wait. You don't have any defensiveness on you. You hear them out. You let them talk. And then with no emotion other than love or kindness, you simply say, oh, I appreciate the offer. I'd rather not. But again, thank you so much for asking. Boom. That's it.
Yeah. And it's about being top of mind, like just to be asked, to be thought about, to be asked to be on a board or whatever that might be.
It's a nice compliment.
It is a fabulous compliment, but also shows that people are paying attention to the value that you bring.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. So just in closing here, Bob, I have your 2 books here, and I don't have the third one yet. It's going to be on my list for my Christmas gift. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you, the principles are very powerful. If someone's just listening to this interview for the first time and being introduced to you and John David Mann's concepts in your book, The Go-Giver Philosophy, what is one thing that they can start doing today to make them head toward being a go-giver?
Well, just like Pindar told Joe in the story, you might remember there was one condition for mentorship. And Pindar said to Joe that you need to apply each law the day you learn it before you go to sleep at night. Not think about doing it, not looking at why it might not work, and also, but not having to do it perfectly, but just to take action on it. Because that's the key, because we can know all the information in the world, whether it's this or anything else. But if we don't take action on it, nothing's going to happen. And so I would suggest, as people read the book, when they learn the laws, just try to apply the law that very day. I mean, don't put pressure on yourself and don't feel you have to be perfect, but just go ahead and do it and start doing it and see how you feel when doing it and see the responses that you get when doing it. And this action is going to lead to feeling. We incorrectly think as human beings that we need to feel something in order to do it. No, action precedes feeling. We act our way into feeling a certain way.
So also when you said that, to try that one thing during the day, as they become self-aware of doing that concept from the book, I think they also start watching for it in the people around them. As people are having conversations and saying, you know what, that person's actually a go-giver.
I know, I get so much feedback about, I love that. I get emails on that all the time. I love that you brought that up. Yeah.
So Bob, how do people get in touch with you? How do they learn more about not just the Go-Givers books, but to gain more information from you, reach out to you? How can they do that?
Sure. They can visit thegogiver.com, and in this case, it's Go-Giver without the hyphen. It's just thegogiver.com, and they can scroll down. They'll see my podcast, which they can subscribe to if they'd like, the Go-Giver podcast. They can join the Go-Giver movement, and they can check out the books and get a excerpt and read chapter 1 if they'd like to see if they like it. Then they can always click through to the online bookstore. And they can also connect with me on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and wherever they'd like.
Excellent. So what would be one message from today's interview that you would like to leave our listeners before I sign off here?
It would probably be more than anything else. Just look for ways you can add value to the marketplace. And there's always ways, because there are always things people need help with. So I think whether we're talking about relationships in terms of, or whether we're talking about success in terms of financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, what have you, just ask yourself this question: how can I be of value to this person? And it might be nothing more than opening the door for someone to let them walk in first, or that you see someone that you fill up your coffee and you see someone and you offer to pour theirs as well. Or it might be that you see someone is having some trouble with some work and you help them with that. Or it might be you, have a good website with a tool someone can use for their, whatever it is. Just look for ways you can be of value. It feels so good to be of value, and it starts this chain reaction, which is just immense.
Thank you so much. Everyone, this is Bob Burg from The Go-Giver. And one of the things that I am going to challenge you out there is that if you get a chance to get a hold of these books, not only just for yourself, but there's nothing more greater value than gifting this to someone and sharing the knowledge of the Go-Giver philosophy. I have found it very powerful to share that message myself. And we are hoping that throughout this interview, you have gained powerful nuggets of information. The Millionaire Woman Show has continued to expand and grow globally, sharing principles of leadership, business, and human potential to help you be your best, living rich from the inside out. We would love to hear from you. Email us at deborah@deborahkozowski.com to let us know how this podcast has influenced you, other speakers you'd like to hear, and interviews that I can do for you to bring that value to you. As well, go on to iTunes, give us a rating, write a review. We would love, the feedback is what drives us into delivering to you. And if you want to go on over to get the transcribed notes, and the interview doesn't have transcribed notes, but there are notes from other podcasts that you can read if you're a reader. Otherwise, we have the video. It's going to be on YouTube as well as on my website. And we're going to be sharing the love here, Bob, and sharing tweets and different things about our interview today so that people can step into becoming a go-giver. Thank you very much, everyone, and take care. And as Bob talked about giving value, be that change you wish to be in the world, as Mahatma Gandhi said, and go out and make today great.